Bien. Mart Laidmets. Usted es subsecretario general en el Ministerio de Educación y Investigación de Estonia, es historiador, es jefe del Departamento de Educación Superior y como subsecretario coordina la educación en general, la profesión docente, las necesidades especiales, los problemas juveniles y la red de escuelas. Pero yo quiero concentrarme en un aspecto que es el régimen a que están sometidos los maestros, cuál es el régimen laboral, cuáles son los salarios, cuáles son los horarios, cuáles son las evaluaciones, si estas tienen sanción, cómo es el retiro, la jubilación de los docentes en su país.
Thank you. It's a very good question because if we are talking about success stories, when we have two countries at least here which are neighbors, and Japan is quite close to us also, mentally at least. But compared to Finland and Estonia, to start from the salary conditions in Estonia are totally different than what they are in Finland, because in Finland salary level is above average, but in Estonia it's still about average. But what I think is most important and what is similar in our system, that the teachers are true professionals. They are proud over what they are doing. They are have quite a big autonomy, what they can do. They are not overloaded with work, I would say. It's very strict regulations, how much they can do and what are the limits. But they are real professionals which should know very well their subject and have to teach very well. So that shows in a way that even if salary conditions and maybe even retirement conditions are not so very good, if the professionals are really doing the work very well, then the result might anyway be very good. But I must add that we have been working very hard with, for the better conditions for teachers. So in OECD countries, the teacher salary is growing fastest in Estonia right now.
Reteniéndome en los salarios son superiores al promedio de la OCDE. ¿Cuánta importancia tiene este aspecto en la calidad que ha obtenido su país?
The salaries are around average, yes. And of course, to attract more better students to become teachers, when you should have quite normal salary levels.
Jaana, yo voy a necesitar el método de Singapur para aprender su apellido, pero vamos a decir Jaana. Usted tiene una thank you. Usted tiene una experiencia importante en educación comparada, en la experiencia en distintos países del mundo. En cuanto a la relación maestro, maestra, educandos, ¿cuáles son las tendencias actuales en materia, por ejemplo, de autoridad o interrelación con los alumnos, clases completas o grupos? ¿Cuál es hoy día el modo en el cual el docente se comunica con sus alumnos?
Well, if you look at globally, there are huge differences, of course, between the countries. So coming from Finland, I think we are at the, well, in the other extreme when we are speaking about the teacher's role and a changing role of teacher in the classroom. So how we see the teacher's role today in Finland is that teacher is more like a coach to support students to achieve their best. This is, of course, historically partly linked to our Nordic traditions, because we feel very strongly in Finland, and maybe that's the biggest difference between the Asian countries, by the way, that we should support the weakest ones. We have very strong social component, Nordic social component in our way to organize the school and organize the teaching in the classrooms. And that is probably one of the, let's say, background factors which define also how the things are run in the classrooms in Finland. However, in Finland, we see it's very learner-centered approach which we are having when we are implementing the classes in Finland. So the teachers should, both the teachers and the students should work together. So we are very much encouraging the collaboration in the classroom, not only between the students, but I think it's very important today to encourage the teachers to work together as well, because the teacher's profession can be very, very lonely profession in some cases, and this is not very well functioning today, and this is a challenge which very many countries are actually facing today when they are trying to find new innovative methods how to organize the teaching and learning in the education system, but also how to achieve better results in learning.
Una pregunta que no vamos a hacer solamente en este panel, pero me interesa particularmente el caso de Finlandia. Ayer hablábamos sobre el span of attention, el periodo de concentración que puede tener un alumno, y eso está vinculado necesariamente a la extensión de las clases. ¿Cuánto dura una clase en Finlandia y cuánto cree usted que debería durar?
Well, this is a bit tricky question. In principle, the class is 45 minutes, and then we are having break. And it's very important to have breaks, of course, in Finland. We love to take children outside. We are great believers in fresh air. We are great believers in warm school meals, because we feel that all these, let's say, side activities during the school day, they support learning, and they can also make learning probably more fun. However, this being said, when we look at our new core curricula, it actually encourages teachers and schools to break the school day and break the borders between the traditional lessons and traditional classes. So it is possible in Finland not to have this standard 45 minutes lesson, but to have a longer lesson. Let's say combine two lessons. If you are making a project, if you are carrying a project with a classroom, why to quit it after 45 minutes if everybody is working, and if everybody's working in groups and there's a good boost in the classroom? Okay, then you should have a longer lesson in that case, but still you need to have breaks. I think this is important for recovering of the pupils and also recovering and get new energy and new boost for the day. So and also when I'm looking at our new curricula, or recently new curricula, we are encouraging teachers to take classes out of school. So once again, if you are studying forest biology, is it better to do in the forest? We have a lot of forest in Finland, so that's not a problem actually, not even Helsinki. Is it better to do in the forest and take a classroom to the forest, or stay inside precisely 45 minutes and have the lesson in the classroom? That's always up to the consideration. So we are trying to give a lot of options and optionality for teachers and schools how to organize a school day. Not to be restricted in certain standard rules. But as said, we have kind of a skeleton which you can either obey or not obey.
Makito, Yurita. Usted es investigador del Instituto Nacional de Maestros de Escuela y Staff de Japón y miembro del Consejo Directivo de la Sociedad Japonesa para el Estudio de la Enseñanza. Una cosa sorpresiva e interesante es cuáles son los objetivos de la enseñanza que plantea el Instituto más allá de la formación, los conocimientos básicos que debe tener el alumno. Porque entre esos objetivos está la tolerancia, la justicia social, la cuantificación de valores cualitativos como los sentimientos, las percepciones, la pedagogía crítica. Esto significa que la escuela y los maestros tienen una responsabilidad que va más allá de introducir conocimientos y que hacen a la formación moral, social del alumno.
Thank you, Ambassador. That's a very difficult question, particularly coming from Japan. It's very difficult to answer the question. But I think that the question is very touching to a very important point. It is very good to ask this question in UNESCO. And I think that when we are talking about the teacher quality, that we oftentimes forget about the philosophy the teacher should have. And therefore, oftentimes there's a discussion about whether teachers should be trained in a university, which is yesterday's question, but teachers should be trained in a university or teachers should be trained in some training school, a trade school. And I think that in Japan, that it is our idea that teacher has to be the thinker and the learner and the inquirer. Teacher has to be the citizen, teacher has to be intellect. In other words, that we believe the idea teacher's identity rests in a profession, not as an occupation. So if we are raising a teacher to prepare the citizens of the next generation, I think it is important to prepare the teacher and also give the teacher the opportunity to participate in a philosophical discussion, what is education for? We oftentimes think that education is for preparing the people to take off the job or to help the nation, and etc. But what it means of helping the nation, what it means of helping the economy, when we do not pursue prepare the citizens to pursue for humanity and the social justice, not only within the country but also internationally. And therefore, I'm not quite sure if I can answer the question rightly or not, but I think that it is not my place to talk about what is the goal or what is the education, what we are aiming to education for. I think it is very important to create an environment that inviting the teachers and the citizens and also students and the professions to discuss in that question. So when I mentioned about the critical pedagogy, I'm trying, in case of Japan, we are thinking about preparing the environment in which we can challenge the culture of seniority and culture of authority, certain trait of the authoritarianism. I'm hoping I'm answering the question.
Okay. ¿Cómo se puede cuantificar los valores cualitativos?
Could you repeat that?
Una de los puntos del instituto es la cuantificación de valores cualitativos. Y yo pregunto, ¿cómo se puede cuantificar lo cualitativo?
My institute does not do that still. I mean, I did that research in Japanese space program. Basically, what we do is we ask the teachers in the space program. We did a teacher training, and we ask the teacher to do the reflection in writing. Basically, we use the text analysis. to see that what sort of the challenging question, what sort of, if the teacher is inquiring or is teacher just receiving the information. It is easy to transmit the information, like memorization or experiments that you asked yesterday. It is easy to create an education program that transmit the knowledge, but it is difficult that, to make a teacher professional development program that allow teacher to go further beyond transmission knowledge. So we are trying to identify how many percentage of the teachers are going, writing down their questions. How many are we successful of making a teacher to ask good questions instead of measuring by how much they attain, how much knowledge or how much information they attain. We also measure what sort of questions they generated. How many portion of the teachers who receiving a professional training are generating new questions. And in that way, we try to quantify that whether the teacher, whether that the professional development was successful towards the goal for more critical pedagogical practitioner of more critical pedagogy.
Mr. Laidmets, hay un punto que no está en nuestra agenda, pero sí está entre sus responsabilidades, que es la educación en el caso de necesidades especiales. ¿Podría desarrollarnos el tema?
You mean students with special needs?
Yes.
As probably globally, especially in Western world, we are talking more and more about this inclusive education, that more and more people should come to school, which actually needs, of course, better preparation for the teachers to cope with children which are a little bit different than very homogeneous classes we have had maybe for a longer time. Different societies have come to a solution in different ways, and even the solutions which are made are a little bit different. And it's not only the teachers, but it's also the parents of children. We're going to talk about families later. But there is, of course, from one side, the demand from the parents that the children should achieve the best possible academic results. But on the other hand, all the children should grow to very well prepared citizens which know and see the differences of people already from early ages. And so how to put it all together, it is not always very simple solutions which you have to find. But it is possible, and I think that this inclusive education, it's giving already results. Because it's important for, if we are talking about labor market, for example, it's important also that those people with special needs are really able to go already to schools, or they are used to this life, and they get the skills which actually they can get. But of course, it needs a special preparation of teachers also, and of course all the support personnel, so that every child really gets this support and gets the best results from school.
Por supuesto, las necesidades son de distinto nivel, de distinta importancia, pero en principio los niños con necesidades especiales integran las clases normales, o hay una dedicación especial, una dedicación separada para tratar sus dificultades.
When we are talking about this inclusive education, the main idea is that we go to normal schools and normal classes as much as possible. But of course, if children are dangerous to ours, or if they have so specific needs that they really can't study in normal classes, when we have even special schools or special classes in normal schools. It is possible that with some special needs kids study part of a day alone, but together with our students in some lessons. So it depends very much on the special needs of children, and the possibilities which a school can provide.
Pero la tendencia es que cuanto menor sea la dificultad, hay una integración del niño con necesidades especiales en la escuela normal.
Yes, absolutely. And usually when we are talking about physical special needs or something like that, when it's already a long time quite normal, but those kids go to normal schools. But when we are talking about these psychological problems or something like that, then it's more complicated, but it's always possible to find a solution.
Jaana, usted es directora de Relaciones Internacionales. Si uno toma los índices que estamos tomando, PISA, TIMSS, en el tiempo pasado, no muy lejano, los países nórdicos, los países europeos ocupaban los primeros puestos. Ahora ha habido un desplazamiento hacia el Asia. Finlandia todavía está ahí en la lista, los topes, y ahora también Estonia. Pero ¿es necesaria una adaptación, una modificación de los modos de enseñanza, de la currícula en Europa? ¿Cuál es la razón por la que se ha producido ese desplazamiento y Asia ocupa ahora los primeros puestos?
Well, this is always very difficult to say one reason or point out just one reason, but that I fully agree. Development is evident. And I guess this is also, it also indicates to us all of the very fast developments in society and within the education systems. Asian countries, very many Asian countries have put a lot of effort in developing their education systems recently. And when I'm saying resources, I'm not speaking only about money, definitely money as well. But also they have developed their curriculums, their content of education, and also their, let's say, whole concept of education. What is interesting, because we have had a lot of opportunities to share the different, let's say, philosophies and experiences which we have among European countries and our Asian sisters and brothers, I think there are still differences in the concepts, which I think Dr. Lee very eloquently also put it out. So we are doing well and we are achieving very good results, but let's say the goals are somewhat different and the philosophy is somewhat different. So if I, for instance, take some examples, competitiveness, I think that's a very strange concept for most of the European countries. We are not encouraging it, and especially Nordic countries, we are most concentrating on more equal results, I mean good equal results to everybody. And also this joy of learning and how to strive the motivation. I guess this is also a bit of different concept. So how the school day is formed, for instance, I'm sure we are discussing later about the length of school days and the number of lessons where the differences are huge, for instance, between Finland and China, to take one example. So concepts are different, and I think what we are trying to do is to learn from each other and see and maybe pick up also the best of the experiences of each other. But what will be the future of Europe, we don't know, of course. Maybe our Asian tigers are coming and taking us over entirely. That's one possibility. But what we have to bear in mind is that when we are looking at rankings like PISA or TIMSS or whatever, they are just measuring one part of the education system, one part of the results. And I think coming from the ministry, who is very much concerned about the future. Finland is also, we have very rapidly aging population that's common with Singapore, for instance, between Singapore and Finland and Japan especially. So we have to find new means all the time and new methods how to cope with these forthcoming challenges. And also how the education system can be more competitive, how we can provide citizens who can cope with the challenges in this very rapidly changing world. And for those new skills which are needed, I'm not quite sure if PISA or TIMSS or whatever are measuring them entirely. So the whole package of how to provide citizens, how to provide young citizens who can cope with those enormous and more complex challenges in the future is another issue. And that's, of course, one question is how the rankings could measure those sort of skills. It's much more difficult issue than just measure how well you are doing in mathematics or how well you are doing in literature.
Por supuesto, la formación de ciudadanos, el desarrollo humano no se limita a las mediciones de PISA, pero las matemáticas son universales, la ciencia también. ¿Y usted cree que en estos aspectos las mediciones, como las de PISA o de TIMSS, reflejan realmente la calidad de la educación en estas materias?
Partly, yes, and of course they make, comparisons are always good. I mean, it's very good to benchmark yourself, because always when you are benchmarking and analyzing the results, that hopefully brings some new dynamic approaches and questions to your education system. So when you are developing your education system, it's always good to benchmark. It's always good to have reflections. But on the other hand, if you are just relying on one or two rankings and draw your conclusions to make changes in education policies on the basis of those, that could be a huge mistake.
Gracias. Mr. Yurita, la presencia de Singapur, de Estonia, de varios países entre los primeros puestos de estas mediciones es algo relativamente nuevo. Ya hay varios años, pero de todas maneras, Japón tiene una tradición en materia de educación. No es para nada una novedad. Es un periodo muy largo en el cual Japón ha tenido una preeminencia en materia de educación. ¿Cuáles son las características definitorias del sistema japonés? ¿Cómo podemos señalar en qué consiste y cuáles son las particularidades de este sistema?
Feature of Japanese education system, I think our strength comes from system. That system we have a very strong system for providing training of the teachers continuously. It's of course that in the teacher preparation program that the university offers, and after the university and the teacher getting employed, then we have induction training. After the induction training, there's a 10-year training, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a formal system of training program. And that's why in Japan, it is also, in addition to the culture of seniority, culture of seniority is in addition, but because of that, I think it's very much easier compared to other countries to implement a certain policy, I think. That's one reason. And also, secondly, that Japan has a very strong practice of informal training. Teachers themselves getting together to learn from each other's experience. Lesson study is one of the good examples that are very known in the world. Many specialists stand here today was mentioned about the teacher is a lonely profession. In Japan, I'm sure teachers are lonely too, but not to the level of other countries. Teachers often work when teachers usually get together in a teacher's lounge where teacher stays. Teachers do not have his or her office in the classroom. They have an office together, and they sit together with a desk next to each other. Therefore, new teachers are not usually not alone. They have a senior teacher to ask questions. Of course, sometimes it works negatively because the senior teacher doesn't like the new teacher, and those things happen because it's a human relations. But at the same time, we have a system to prevent a teacher to be alone. We have a system to prevent a teacher to be left alone without any training. I think that's one of the strengths we have.
Usted ha señalado puntos que diferencian el modelo japonés de otros. Sin embargo, los resultados son bastante similares. Y esto significa que la importancia de los métodos de educación es relativa, que no debemos pensar que un método es un modelo. Por cierto, como decía el ministro de Educación de Argentina, nada se puede trasplantar, pero uno puede inspirarse en un modelo u otro. ¿Cuánta importancia tiene para usted la identificación de un modelo como el japonés o como el de Singapur?
I think identifying the best model from the other countries experiencing such very useful, so long as it is used as a reference. Same as the PISA and the TIMSS and those measurements as well. So long as we use them as a way to develop the common language, it will be useful. But if we understand that the PISA and the TIMSS and those international studies as a method for ranking, that's why I'm strongly against about the use of word ranking when we're talking about the international comparison of education systems, because it's usually foster our thinking toward, it has to be better by ranking. But I think instead, those international studies, all the best practice, like the one in Singapore and etc., we have to use them as a reference. And by using it as a reference, I think it is very beneficial to learn from other countries' experiences. And because of that, we have a different cultural context, different political environment, a different history. And therefore, but being different does not really mean those are useless. I think we can use them as a reference, and we can study, and use the data to talk with each other. Ask questions about it, and also domestically we create an environment to discuss about, so this is the best practice in this country. According to the data, this country is resulted this way. Historically looking, this country has been developing this way. So what do you think? And in that way, we can invite everybody into the discussion. I think that's the best way to approach.
Mr. Laidmets, Estonia ha irrumpido en los primeros puestos, viniendo de abajo. ¿Qué es lo que permitió ese ascenso y cuánta influencia tiene el modelo finlandés en el desarrollo de la educación en Estonia? ¿Cómo se explica esa irrupción?
Partially, of course, it's influence of Finland, maybe as a neighbors. But historically, even in Estonia, where education has been in very important place for everybody in the society. And actually, I think it concerns all the countries which we are talking about as the top performance in PISA. There are, of course, specific cultural aspects, and sometimes it's asked what are the secrets behind PISA. Of course, it is professional teachers, it is family support, and curriculum, which really we have taken many examples from Finland. So we have had long tradition of strong education system, but we have improved it all the time. So it's really what is needed in today's society. But talking about rankings, I think the rankings or PISA, whatever, as it was mentioned already, it measures only one part of it. And actually, in many countries which are performing quite low in PISA, might be the best schools in the world. But the problem is that those schools are not available for everybody. And what PISA is actually showing is that even the kid from low socioeconomic background can achieve top results or get to university in those systems which we are talking. Because I can't say that the average school in Estonia might be however we measure the school, the best in a way in the world. Every school actually should be the best for the kid in the region where he or he is living globally. So it's very somehow difficult to compare. On the other hand, every school should provide you also the possibility that you can really develop your whatever skills you have. And I think in that way, PISA is still measuring right things, but those systems give this possibility to the kids to really develop the best way.
Bueno, muchas gracias a los tres. Es hora de lunch, de modo que vamos a hacer un break ahora y seguiremos más tarde. Muchas gracias.